Welcome into Talk Illini here, part of the Orange and Blue news with On 3 Network. Tough loss for the Illini tonight, going down 85-82 to a Michigan State team in overtime at Michigan State, the Breslin Center. Very difficult place to play. I said it after Michigan State lost to Minnesota. I said, wow, what a terrible week for Michigan State. Divine Ugochukwu, I think is how you pronounce his name. He went down with an injury. He's out for the season. And in the second half of my tweet, I said, and somehow I'm even more terrified for Illinois after this happens. And turns out I was right to be terrified for Illinois, Carson, because they came out tonight on fire, played one of the best games of the season. I think I've seen them play, and I saw Illinois play not one of the worst games of the season, but an uncharacteristic game from Illinois tonight.
Yeah, I saw a tweet kind of early on the game that just said, whoever's most physical is going to win the game. And honestly, now that we're through the entire first two halves plus OTs, I think both teams matched each other pretty evenly on the physicality stand front. There might be some thoughts on was it necessarily called the same both ways, physicality wise. We'll leave that up to viewer discretion, but certainly,
let us know in the comments if you feel like it was fair or not. We'll do that. We'll let the commenters decide.
We'll let the commenters take care of that one. But so it's maybe not exactly what Illinois fans were hoping for, but I don't feel worse about our team coming out of a game like this. I think you went to one of the 4 or 5 hardest places to play on the road in the country, and you were very competitive. You led multiple times throughout the game. There's 12 ties going into overtime, so certainly fairly evenly matched. And Illinois, I'd say maybe certain players had down games, but as a whole, you feel great about what you got out of pretty much everyone still.
Yeah, Keaton Wagler tonight, 2 of 16, 2 of 8 from 3, but he was 10 of 12 from the free throw line. So obviously, that was a big part of getting his total points to 16 points in this one. I felt like the physicality for Keaton Wagler did affect him in this game. I wouldn't say that he lost his poise or anything like that. We did see some frustration you don't normally see from Keaton there at the end of the game with some of the foul calls and stuff like that, and that's warranted. I get that. You're not getting every call out there, and some of them are a little bit questionable. But I do think that for an Illinois team who did not have a fantastic game from Keaton Wagler, had more fouls drawn on them than they have for most of the season. I mean, they averaged 12 fouls going into the game. They had 21 in this one and got out-rebounded by 10 rebounds. They still got 15 offensive rebounds, but Michigan State had 48. They only had 38. To lose by 3 in overtime? I mean, listen, I know Illinois fans don't want to hear like moral victories or anything like that, but those are 3 of the biggest reasons you've been winning games here recently. All 3 of those things went wrong. Still only lost by 3 in overtime. Am I crazy here, Carson?
No, I mean, Michigan State had a 20-point edge on you in transition buckets, and it was a 3-point game. Yeah. Every metric says you should have lost by 15 or 20, and you lost by 3. I don't feel terrible about that at all.
No, I don't either. And I do think that, like, this is a type of loss, and don't get me wrong, it's not like a loss you want to have, but this is a type of loss that Brad can point back to, Coach Brad Underwood can point back to time and time again and be like, look, you feel great after Nebraska. You feel great after all these games. But here's the game they can still do it to you on. Here's the game that if you don't play your best game, if you don't put it all together, they can still do it to you on this game. David Mirkovic had 18 points. He was 5 of 13 from the field. I thought that his ball handling ability, his bringing the ball up the court was massive for them in this game to be able to have the offense that they had, even though it wasn't by any means perfect or anything. But for them to have that kind of performance, to have Andre Stojakovic, 8 of 14, he was only 1 for 2 from 3. I love the way they started utilizing him in this game as well. This was a game that, yeah, you didn't get the win, but there's still a number of positives you can take out of this.
Yeah, certainly. I think pretty much every contributor outside of Keaton Wagler had an average or above average game, and guys who had been on cold streaks, like you said, Andre, they kind of broke those streaks. So you feel good, and also I'm not too concerned about Keaton Wagler. I think you could have a one-off performance and still be great on the season. He has been great. I don't think his draft stock's going to go down because of one bad game. The one thing I am a little concerned about is this did kind of show you the blueprint to how to slow him down. You have to be physical. You have to have an elite guard or 2. You have to hit him at the point of attack. You have to have guys on him at the perimeter. Give him no space to operate freely outside the arc. And most teams don't have the personnel to get away with doing that. Michigan State did. They're a defensive minded team, and it worked out well for them. But I don't know how many other teams in the country have enough dudes that could have the length, size, strength, and speed to defend Keenan Wagler and four other players from Illinois at the same time.
For sure. And I think we'll talk about Jeremy Fears Jr. here in just a minute and the kind of game that he had, because obviously he was instrumental in Michigan State getting the win here. But I do think that this Michigan State team has a guy in Carson Cooper that can guard on the perimeter. Now, David Berkovich still was able to get by him a couple of times, so it's not like he was perfect out there. But, Illinois loves to hunt those mismatches, and Carson Cooper is by no means Oscar Clough, right? He was able to go after Oscar Clough in that Purdue game. The mismatch was something they hunted the entire time. They were trying to hunt the mismatches here in this one too, but Michigan State 1 through 5, I'm not saying all of them could lock up Keaton Wagler or anything like that, but you did see better perimeter defense from a guy like Carson Cooper, Jackson Kohler to a certain extent that were able to do a really good job on Keaton Wagler. And I do think that's an area that if you're not able to get those mismatches, that Illinois is probably going to have to figure out not something else on offense, but you are going to need to maybe get a little bit more creative and get used to that happening.
For sure. And, with reffing as well, if you call a more physical game and you swallow the whistle on some, fouls that might be, tic-tac fouls that they would call in other games, like, yeah, certainly that kind of play style works. I don't have an issue with that style of ball. I love watching it as a viewer. But, if you're Illinois, you hope you don't have too many more games like that this year where, they let teams play a little too physical.
Yeah, for sure. Jeremy Fears Jr., 26 points tonight, 15 assists. Jackson Kohler had 16 rebounds, so obviously he was impactful in this as well. But Jeremy Fears Jr. was really the one down the stretch. Had another incident tonight with David Merkovich and kind of stuck his leg out a little bit there. It was a trip, no doubt. If you want to say it was intentional or not, we'll leave that up to the commenters to decide. To me, it seems like a little bit of a pattern right now, but it is what it is. He was able to come out and play really well at the end of the game, and he was huge for him. What were your thoughts on Illinois getting disrupted by Jeremy Fears Jr.'s defense, and then also them trying to stop him on offense, and just how savvy Jeremy Fears Jr. is and how tough that matchup was?
Yeah, the kid is an agitator in like the best sense of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy, he will get in your face, he'll get up in your grill, he'll defend you physical, and if the refs let him play the most physical kind of game that he wants to play, he's probably pound for pound one of the best defenders in the country. He moves super quick, elite change of direction. From like a football perspective, he moves kind of like a defensive back in man coverage. Like he gives you no space if you let him, right? And so for a guy like Keenan Wagler, who he has a wider base, he has a wider wingspan, he needs more room to operate, right? If dude's up in your grill and you can't operate, it takes away a huge aspect of the game for the offense. So, on defense, he's I would hate playing against him. Offensively, he's crafty. The jumper is still not there, but situationally, he's able to make timely shots. He's got an okay mid-range game, and he's not afraid to go up and get contact around the rim, even though he's 6'2" maybe. Like he's small, but he's physical and he's not afraid of contact, and that's winning basketball at the end of the day.
And he's a veteran too. I mean, you saw that pump there at the end of the game that was able to get Keaton Wagler up in the air. And as fantastic as Keaton Wagler has been, he's still a freshman. He's got so much poise. He does such a great job. But hopefully that's a situation where he can learn from that, move on, and hopefully next time Illinois plays Michigan State, Kylan Boswell is back out there, because I think this was the type of game where you really missed Kylan Boswell. I think that his defense would have been really impactful on Jeremy Fears Jr. I think that his calming presence on offense could have helped this team a lot as well. I'm not saying they win the game if they have Kylan Boswell out there. We have no idea, but I do think that this game plays out differently with the matchups and how things align if Kylan Boswell was out there. What are your thoughts on Kylan Boswell if he comes back and going up against Michigan State?
Yeah, I don't know how exactly it would look. I do think defensively Illinois would probably have a slightly better advantage, just because I think Boswell would match up better against Fears. I think he'd kind of take away some of Fears' ability to just, Fears, one thing on offense that he does so well is anytime there's a pick and roll, there's a screen set, he's good at going to the open space and then immediately making that second cut to find the next area that's open. Like there's not a lot of time between making one decision and then processing and making another for him. He's got constant movement. His feet are always moving, whether he has the ball in his hands or not. And I think it's incredibly valuable. And I think Kylan Boswell is effective on defense, especially if you have him just manned up. Don't lose your man. I think he's better at sticking to somebody's hip than anyone else on Illinois' team right now. So certainly, I think he would slow fears down a little bit. But yeah, at the end of the day, it was an even matchup without him. I think, factoring that he'd come back in, yeah, I'd probably give Illinois the slight edge. But you never really know. I think both the teams fully healthy are probably fairly even. If they had Devon Ogwachukwu back and we had Kellen Boswell back, I still think at the end of the day it's a pick'em game either way.
For sure, and you don't have Michigan State left on the schedule here, so there's no guarantee of playing them. If you're gonna play them again, it's most likely in the Big Ten, tournament. Maybe you see them in March or something, March Madness or something like that. But I kind of doubt you'll see them there unless both these teams just find their way into the Elite Eight or Final Four or something like that. I think that the seeding is probably gonna put it in that perspective there. I would think. I mean, don't you think Illinois, even after this loss, 2 seed? As long as they do what they're supposed to do, Michigan State probably looking at a 2 or 3 seed.
Yeah, I think Illinois minimum is a high 3 seed, and then
Yeah.
maybe this loss puts them towards the back end of the twos right now. I think they were the number 1 2 seed going into today, or the second 2 seed, depending on which bracketologist made the bracket. But yeah, I think Illinois right now would have the back half of the 2 seeds, and they have to finish out strong. But I think they're comfortably on that 2 line unless they have a meltdown. If they do some midweek antics against Wisconsin that don't go well, yeah, I could see them moving down to maybe as low as a 4. But I think Illinois is safely a top 3 to 4 seed in the tournament come March. And if they win out, you never know. The fourth one spot, some things have to happen. Other teams have to lose a couple, but it's still in play.
Yeah, you look at the schedule here and how it shapes up for Illinois. You get Wisconsin and Indiana at home. You go to USC, to UCLA. That's your West Coast trip. Michigan and Oregon at home, and then you finish it off with at Maryland. Listen, I'm not trying to jinx the team or anything like that, but this is a schedule where you should either win out or only lose one game the rest of the year, and that's not even a guarantee to lose one game because that's a home game against Michigan. There, we just saw how big it is to go into a crazy home environment for a team. You look at Illinois the rest of the way. Now they don't control their own destiny here anymore. They're one game out of first place against Michigan, but I guess you do kind of control your own destiny there. You have the win over Nebraska, but it was split, so I don't know what the tiebreaker exactly looks like there. I'll have to go brush up on my stuff there, but you get the win over Michigan, and you're looking to be in a much better spot. And that's the only game against Michigan you play this season, so you win out, and you're at the very least looking at a tie at the top of the Big Ten, depending on how things work out with Nebraska and Michigan. And if they win all their games, this team still very much so has a good shot to be able to win the Big Ten, Carson.
Yeah, absolutely. If they went out and Nebraska wins out, I think it'd be a share. I think if they went out and Michigan only loses one more game, that's to Illinois, I believe Michigan would have the outright just off of pure record. But
okay,
yeah, that could be wrong, but yeah, win out and you're probably good at the end of the day.
Yeah, we'll have to brush up on the Big Ten tiebreaker stuff and everything, and do an episode on that sometime here coming up as we go in between some of these bigger games that are coming up as well. But overall, look, it sucks. Illinois fans, not trying to make you feel good about the loss or anything like that, but you walk away from this one and you say, yeah, just about everything that could have went wrong, and we still only lost by 3 points in overtime. Congrats to Michigan State. They deserved it. All that stuff, referees and everything you can talk about. But at the end of the day, they got it. Is what it is. Move on. Illinois got a really good shot in front of them. Is there anything else in this game you wanted to mention, Carson?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah. All right. Hey, we appreciate you being here. Thank you for listening to Talk Illini, part of Orange and Blue News, the On3 Network. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff for us. Like I said, let us know in the comments your thoughts on the officiating and everything else that happened in this game. We'd love to hear what you guys had to think. And what do you think? What do you think the chances are of this Illinois team of winning the Big Ten after a game like this? Favorable schedule to end the season, but you do have Michigan on there still, so that's going to be a big matchup you have later on. But this was probably the toughest part of Illinois' schedule. They just got through it, and they're sitting second place in the Big Ten right now. Can't ask for much better than that. We'll see where they are at the end of the season, but should be a fun ride. And you can tune in here on Talk Illini as we recap it all and talk about it the entire way and have you covered with it. Thanks for being here. Have a good one.